ಸಂವಿಧಾನ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ನನಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ನನಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಖುಷಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಮಿಸ್ಕನ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಭಾರಿ ಜನರ ಮನಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಸರಿಪಡಿಸೋಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ನನಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. Many people think that the British, before they left India, made provisions for Anglo-Indians to be nominated in the Lok Sabha and the state legislatures, which is grossly incorrect. It is indeed a great privilege and honor for me to participate in this discussion on our Constitution at a time when our country is in the throes of creating a new India. Balancing history and modern-day India is a daunting task, and yet we need to evolve and grow into a country that our founding fathers dreamt what India would become: a progressive nation, a safe nation, and a just nation built by we the people of India and not just political parties. We all have a role to play in building this country, some more than others. Nevertheless, we must never forget our history, which is the strong roots upon which this country is built on. I commend you, sir, for initiating such a discussion, which has made many of us go back to the Constitution and read it in all earnest, which we might not have done had this discussion not been initiated by you. My resources have mainly been the Constitution of India, written by the visionary Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and my great Anglo-Indian leader and ex-MP, Mr. Frank Anthony. His book, Britain's Betrayal in India, a story of the Anglo-Indian community, published in 1969, which is out of print today. Today I wish to speak on the importance of reservations, to endorse the preamble of our Constitution, to justify to all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and the unity and integrity of the nation. I will just focus on justice and equality, which are like conjoined twins, both interlinked for survival, wherein social, economic, and political justice cannot be achieved without equality of status and of opportunity. Hence, reservations facilitate deliverance of social equality and social justice to marginalized sections of society. The reasons I picked these two topics to re-emphasize is the fact that Dr. Ambedkar wrote this Constitution with specific protection for minorities, and today there is a palpable fear among minorities in India which needs to be assuaged by the government. An interesting fact to strengthen my topic of discussion that I'd like to refer to is that the father of the Indian Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar, was ready to burn the Constitution. On the 2nd of September 1953 in the Rajya Sabha, Dr. Ambedkar said, "My friends tell me that I have made the Constitution, but I'm quite prepared to say that I shall be the first person to burn it out. I do not want it. It does not suit anybody. But whatever that may be, if our people want to carry on, they must not forget that there are majorities and there are minorities. And they simply cannot ignore the minorities by saying, 'Oh no, to recognize you is to harm democracy.' I should say that the greatest harm will come by injuring the minorities. This sums up the great importance given to minorities in our sacred Constitution. While I stand here in support of all minorities, including SCs, ST, Dalits, the differently able, the backward classes, there is a misconceived perception that the British got Anglo-Indians their nomination in the Lok Sabha and state legislatures before they left India. There is nothing further away from the truth than this. It was our founding fathers like Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Ambedkar, and the Constituent Assembly which gave Anglo-Indians our nomination as a constitutional privilege and guarantee, considering we were scattered all over India. Our inability to fight elections and win, and also for the pivotal role our small community played in pre- and post-independent India in nation building, which testimony stands tall till today, be it our education system, the railways, post and telegraphs, etc. I draw the attention of this august House to recent changes made in the Constitution which adversely affects the Anglo-Indian community. Under Part 16, special provisions relating to certain classes, Article 331, 333, and 334B. We believe as a community we have been discriminated against without rhyme or reason. In light of this, I wish to educate this House on some of the facts of the vital role played by Anglo-Indians in nation building. Anglo-Indians are a race that came into existence because of circumstances and the world order that existed more than 300 years ago, with wars and conquests which seemed like a normal phenomenon in the world. History says that the East India Company was permitted by Jahangir in 1612 to erect a factory in Surat in Gujarat. This was their original headquarters. The factory in Madras was later established in 1639. The British, French, Portuguese all came to India at that time for trade purposes. The beginnings of the community date back to the 17th century. The East India Company with British and European men marrying Indian women. Every Anglo-Indian has an inalienable Indian birthright. Because to be called an Anglo-Indian, you must be born in India. And this will forever be the motherland of the Anglo-Indian community, wherever in the world we may go. I'm once again very proud to quote Mr. Neil O'Brien, our ex-MP and President-in-Chief of the All India Anglo-Indian Association, where he said, "We are the only community in this country to have Indian attached to our name. One is called a Kashmiri, a Kannadiga, a Maharashtrian, a Bengali. But we are very proud of that fact, that we have Indian attached to our name." Anglo-Indian. By the beginning of the 18th century, the East India regime began to acquire the trappings of a colonial government. By this time, the Anglo-Indians had forged for themselves a position of respect in the administration. Many of them had literally fought their way by capacity, work, and character to the highest civil and military positions in the country. They were treated by the Indian population not only with respect, but with deference. By that time, they had become perhaps the most wealthy and influential community in India. There was no discrimination, either social, economical, or racial. Then the shareholders of the East India Company feared that the Indian soldiers, led by Anglo-Indian officers, might emulate the story of what happened in Haiti and drive the British out of India. Here started discrimination, first targeting Anglo-Indians from proceeding to England to study. In 1792, a gazette was published in Calcutta, placing a blanket embargo on Anglo-Indians entering the official cadres of civil and military service. This policy was immediately implemented, and Anglo-Indians were discharged en masse from official positions in the civil services and the army. In the words of Herbert Stark, within a brief period of 10 years, the community between 1786 and 1795, based on the standing orders of the East India Company, Anglo-Indians had been reduced to a status of a proscribed and downtrodden race. In 1808, all Anglo-Indians were discharged from the army. Thereafter, a dense, impregnable wall of social and economic discrimination was drawn around the Anglo-Indians. As a community, we were deliberately oppressed and went into being a community struggling to survive. Our leaders like Sir Henry Gidney and Frank Anthony took up the cause of the community and fought relentlessly to protect us and our identity. With the support of the Government of India, embracing the community for its stellar role in nation building, we were given the privilege of several reservations. In turn, we gave back our best to this country. Be it the railways, where Anglo-Indian men in some instances dug tunnels with their bare hands, the apt handling of the Indian post and telegraphs, our brave and hardworking miners, our nurses, Anglo-Indian women were some of the first to go out into the world. Excuse me. Our Anglo-Indian women were some of the first to go out into the world to work. Our nurses were at the forefront of hospital care system, caring for every sick person, irrespective of caste, creed, or color, when untouchability was rampant in India. Our Anglo-Indian secretaries were the cogs of the wheel of several industrial houses in corporate India that kept businesses running efficiently. Without a doubt, the greatest contribution the community has made to our motherland is our education system. Article 30 of our Constitution permits us to establish and manage our own institutions which provide quality education to lakhs of our children from all sections of society without prejudice or discrimination. We sincerely hope that this constitutional provision for our minorities is not tampered with now. I can proudly say that Anglo-Indian schools have turned out children who go through our institutions into officers and gentlemen and women of great substance and talent. I will quickly touch on how we got our nominations, Adhyakshavare. During the framing of the Constitution, an advisory committee on minority rights was set up, which Mr. Frank Anthony was a part of. In April 1947, Mr. Anthony submitted an 18-page memorandum to the Constituent Assembly on the Anglo-Indian community. It dealt with the history of the community, misconceptions, misunderstandings, our contribution to India's development, fundamental rights, education, instruction in our mother tongue English, and contribution to the future of India. Sir Sardar Patel was the chairman of the Advisory Committee on Minority Rights. Pandit Pant proposed a formula that while there could be no specific reservation for Anglo-Indians and Parsis because they were too small in number, but where they failed to secure representation in the legislature, the president or the governor shall have power to nominate their representatives. At this stage, Sardar Patel intervened and suggested that only the Anglo-Indians should be given special representation by nomination, which was accepted by the advisory committee, and thus was born Articles 331, 333, and 334. History records that the Anglo-Indians spoke in one voice, and a special subcommittee was formed, and Mr. Anthony moved a resolution stated, owing to the complete dependence of the economy of the Anglo-Indian community on their position in certain services and their existing education facilities, a subcommittee consisting of the following members report on the matters. After the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, the question of nomination came up once again, though it was included in the draft constitution. Mr. Anthony then approached Jawaharlal Nehru and Sardar Patel on the matter that was raised in the Advisory Committee on Minority Rights. Both Jawaharlal Nehru and Sardar Patel made it clear that this resolution would not affect the provisions accepted on behalf of the Anglo-Indians for their representation was specially granted to them by nomination. Coming back from 1948 to 2020, the 126th Amendment Act of 2020, the Union Law and Parliamentary Minister stated that extension for another 10 years for nomination of Anglo-Indians in the Lok Sabha and state legislatures was kept in abeyance. Since there are only 296 Anglo-Indians in India and only 9 in Karnataka, which excludes half my immediate family, Uttar Pradesh says 0 Anglo-Indians, but they have an Anglo-Indian MLA. Uttarakhand, it says 0 Anglo-Indians, but they have a BJP-nominated Anglo-Indian MLA. Both these statements of that we are well off and we are only 296 are factually incorrect. Anglo-Indians in India number to more than 3.5 lakhs, and all the community is not well off. Though largely middle class, there are still a number of community that need help. We have progressed through reservations given to us over the last 70 years, but we still have a long way to go for complete integration and economic well-being, just like all other minorities in India. I wish to categorically state that the Anglo-Indians have not been included in the census till 1961. There is no column enumerating Anglo-Indians in the census enumeration form. When there is no column for enumeration in the census enumeration form, how did the authorities come up with the number of 296? Numerous appeals have fallen on deaf ears for including us. Nevertheless, I would strongly and emphatically state that our nomination is not based on our numbers, but on special provisions constitutionally given to the community. At a meeting at which I was present with the Union Law Minister last month, he totally accepted my observations. Hence, it does not matter if we are 296 or 29 lakhs, we are appealing for reconstitution of our nomination based on our current status and the vital role we played till today in nation building. I have just one last page, Adhyaksha, please allow me. As many of you are aware, the 126th Amendment recently implemented, there's a silence on clause 334B for representation of Anglo-Indians in the Lok Sabha and in the state legislatures, which has since lapsed since 25th of January 2020. While extending the reservations for SCs and ST communities, which we most heartily welcome, there's a silence on the extension of 334B for Anglo-Indians, and no reason or explanation whatsoever has been given in the 126th Amendment Act as to why our representation in these two bodies are not extended or why it was dropped. Not one person in the community was consulted by the government. Our nominations are done by the President and Governors of states. Has their opinion been sought? I doubt very much. In my understanding, the 84th Amendment Act of 2001 freezes the composition of state assemblies till 2026 with reference to Article 170. The same was upheld by the Attorney General in the case of the bifurcation of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. So can we change 224 plus 1 while this amendment is still in effect? A gross injustice has been meted out to the Anglo-Indians, and many in our community believe if this is not done, it will be the final betrayal of a small but gallant community. India is a diverse kaleidoscope of cultures, religions, cuisines, tradition, and above all, a people that the world looks up to. So let us strive to keep it that way by upholding our diversity. I take this opportunity to appeal to the government of Karnataka and all present here to support the Anglo-Indian community for continuance of our political representation in the true spirit of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and Sabka Vishwas. In closing, I wish to urge the powers that be not to make women empowerment and representation an act of tokenism, but to have the political will to implement the Women's Reservation Bill instead of just talking about it endlessly. As we Indian women are capable of taking this country to greater heights with our talent, capability, and passion. Thank you very much once again for giving me this opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ.
ಸನ್ಮಾನ್ಯ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರೇ, ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ ಕಂಡ ಅಪ್ರತಿಮ ಪ್ರಗತಿಪರ ಚಿಂತಕ